So switching gears to the Giants, opening day Wednesday against the Yankees. The big news out of camp last week is that Bryce Eldridge, their top prospect, has been optioned to minor league camp,
Mhm.
likely to start the season in AAA. I was wondering what you think of that move, if you think it was the right move for his career and for the team.
I I definitely think he could have stayed up. I'm not opposed to the move though. My belief with prospects, really in any sport, so this isn't just specifically with Bryce. I think that when you're dealing with a prospect, especially one that you have a lot of faith and a lot of potential, one that has a lot of potential, I think you only bring him up when he's 100% ready. Like he's dominating where he's at. He shows that there's no reason for him to be in AAA. Um, and I think until he does that, I don't think it's a bad thing to start him there. I think it's good to let him get his confidence because if he is ready to go, he should show that pretty quickly when the season starts. So
Yeah,
I think the worst thing you can do with a prospect is start him up, bring him back down, and start playing with what team he's on, and then it to me it doesn't go well when you do that. I think you bring him up when he's ready with the intention of keeping him up for good, and you just do it one time. I
yeah.
think if you bring up a guy too early, it messes with his confidence. Like I said, you send him back down, then it goes downhill usually from there. So
Yep.
I'm not opposed to it. I do think though, um, he's going to play just fine in AAA. I think he's going to produce well, and I think once he starts doing that, I think in the next month or two he should come up and stay with the team. So
Yeah,
I'm
he's
not opposed to it.
still only 21 years old.
Yeah,
And the power is definitely there. The power will probably already play at the MLB level,
yeah,
but the concern is the strikeout. The how often he's been striking out both in the minors and then small sample size Cactus League stats. Take it with a grain of salt. But 40 at bats in the Cactus League, he struck out 19 times. So I think it makes sense to I was excited to see him to start the year in San Francisco, but it makes sense to me to send him down, let him refine his approach a little bit, try to get those strikeout numbers down, and then, like you said, when you do bring him back up, make sure he's here for the long term.
yeah. Because I think look as a fan, we all want to see the top prospects come up and play. It makes it more interesting for us to watch. So obviously you want it to happen, right?
Yeah,
But I think it's only a problem if he does go down and dominate and you still don't bring him up, then that's a different story. But
yeah,
um, look, he's a great player, and if he is ready, he's going to show it soon. And
yeah.
once he starts dominating, bring him up, and you're good to go. I don't think that we're going to look back on this year come September, October, and if he starts, let's say, the first month down in AAA, I don't think we're going to look back and say, oh, you know, things would have turned out so much better if he started up. I think it's just regular for these prospects, a regular process to go through. And I think he'll be better from it, especially because it's not like they wanted to send him down. If he dominated spring training, which by all accounts it didn't look like he dominated, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think they would have just kept him. I mean, do you think he played good in spring training, or how would you assess his spring training as a whole?
Well, I was down there. I watched a couple Giants games, and he made a couple nice plays at first base. And reading about the Giants and the Athletic, they do feel like his first base defense has improved, and there's been some signs of that in spring training, which I think is really encouraging because that was another area in addition to the strikeout numbers in the minors. Also, can he play a good enough first base to stick there?
Right.
And I think we're seeing progress there, so that was encouraging. But I think it was a mixed bag, but overall encouraging, and still super excited for his career. I think another aspect of that decision is that they got Luis Matos, who had a pretty promising spring, and he's shown stretches in the bigs of being a really impactful player. And he's out of minor league options, so it was either start him on the major league roster this season or risk losing him to another team.
Right.
So I think by sending Eldridge down, you not only give him an opportunity to play every day and refine his approach, but also you get an extended look at a guy like Matos. You get a look at Gerard Encarnacion, give him some DH starts and see whether or not he can hit. So I think it was probably the right move from an organizational standpoint.
Now, as far as the rest of the team, because obviously that was big news this week, but how do you feel about them as a whole? Their rotation, their lineup 1 through 9. I mean, how do you view this team going into this year?
Well, starting with the lineup, I feel really good about it. I think this is as balanced as a lineup as the Giants have had in a long time.
Mhm.
I really like the Harrison Bader acquisition. I think getting a really quality defensive center fielder is going to help them a lot. Not only, directly, but also indirectly in terms of moving a guy like Jung Hoo Lee to right, where he's probably better suited. You're probably asking a bit too much of him in center field.
Right.
And Luis Arias, while the defense might be concerning, you get a guy who can win the batting title. He hits 300 plus pretty consistently, and the Giants have rarely had somebody like that. So the lineup to me very strong. Um, Rotational depth is a concern. While they added Adrian Hauser, Tyler Mahle, it's still outside of Webb, Ray, Mahle, Hauser, and Landon Root, you don't really have a lot of depth. You're an injury away from really having that be a concern. And I feel like with what we've seen the last few years, ideally you go into a season with like 7 guys who you're comfortable with.
Right.
So that's definitely an area of concern. And the bullpen, I feel like they've never adequately replaced the guys they traded last trade deadline. Randy Rodriguez got hurt, but Camilo Doval, Tyler Rogers, that appears to be an area of weakness to me. And you're going into another season with Ryan Walker as your presumptive closer, who struggled last year. So bullpen is, I think, going to hold them back.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing I'm really excited about is to see Devers in his second season with the team. They
Yeah,
bring him in last year as a huge trade piece. Had a little bit of maybe a slow start, but seemed to have picked it up that toward the end of the year. But I am excited to see what a full year of Devers does for this group, and having that. They have other good players on the team. Don't get me wrong, but having that you know somebody that pitchers will fear in the middle of your lineup.
yeah.
They really haven't had that recently. So I'm excited to see that. And where do you see his game going into this year?
I agree with you. I'm super excited to see a full season of his at bats. I think he's gotten an off season to get comfortable, and I think he'll be great. I think having a true power threat like that in the lineup will be great for the hitters that hit around him too. And I'm excited to see how much thump they have in the middle of the order. You got Adamas and Chapman. Now you've added Devers. Maybe Eldridge is up at some point, and he can contribute as well. So I'm pretty excited for the amount of power they got in the lineup.
Do you how do you like the toward them at the bottom, like 6 through 7 through 9 at the bottom of the order? Where do you see that shaking up as far as who's going to be there?
Well, I'm not sure. It feels pretty balanced, aside from Patrick Bailey, who really struggled with the bat
Right.
last year. But I mean, that's a price you pay with how good he is defensively. But outside of Bailey, they got a really deep lineup. Arias and Jung Hoo Lee, I think, could take a really big step forward this year. Jung Hoo Lee, we saw in the beginning of last season how dynamic he was. Got off to a great start to the season, and then dealt with some injuries over the course of the year. And I think just like the physical toll of a 162 game season maybe prevented him from being able to continue to contribute at that level. But I would like to see him take a step forward. And like I said, defensively, the Bader addition kind of helps him play where he's better suited. But I'd like to see him also take a step forward with the bat.
Do you think? Because I know you mentioned Bailey with how good he is defensively. Do you think last year was just a down year for him, or do you think like do you see any way he can? Because it sounds like he just needs to be an average hitter with what he gives you defensively. Do you see him being able to do that, or do you just see another poor year for him with the bat?
I mean, he's still a young player. I would like to think that he can make some strides this year. He's a clutch hitter. I feel like he always seems to come through at the end of games, but it's just a matter of being consistent with the bat. And like we said, like if you're that good of a defender, the bar's not that high
Yeah,
offensively. If you can just get that average up to like 210, 215, it's like
just give you
you'll
something.
take it. Yeah,
Yeah, especially when you're lower in the order. Yeah, just give you something.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this year for them. 2026 projection or uh, opinion from you. Where do you see them finishing this year?
Well, trying not to be too optimistic as a big fan, I'd like to think they can win 85 games, 86 games, and I think they'll be in the mix for that third wild card spot. Hopefully, we'll be able to get it and get Logan Webb a chance to pitch in the postseason.
Do you think they have, as far as where they stack up in the division? Obviously, the Dodgers have been the dominant team the past decade, really. So, how do you see them going up against that rivalry? How do you see their team stacking up with them? Do you think they could give them a run for their money, or do you think the Dodgers are too far ahead.
I think the Dodgers are too far ahead talent wise, at least in the standings. I don't think it's going to be a close divisional race, but I would like to see the Giants match up a little better with them head to head because the Dodgers have really kind of been dominating us the last few years. Whereas back in the day, it felt like even when the teams were pretty imbalanced, those rivalry games were always still tight. The
For
Giants
sure.
would always
Yeah.
still find a way to beat the Dodgers, even in some of their darker seasons. So I'd like to see them take a little more pride in those games and find a way to win. Make that head-to-head total at the end of the season look a little more even.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, I agree with you though, but I do think I think they do get the wild card. I think these last couple years they've just kind of been in no man's land, really, where they've been around 500. But I do think they take a step. I actually do like. I do think Devers was going to have a big year for them. I think that when Bryce comes up, I think Bryce will be a good player. I think they're deep. I see them getting around 87, 88 wins. I guess with the A's and Giants, I have a little bit more of optimism as far
Nice.
as like
Okay.
the total wins go. But I do think they get there. And as far as like contending and all of that, again, as we've known from the Giants in the past, all you need to do is make it, and you never know what happens.
Yeah.
So, but I do like their roster, and I think they'll make the playoffs. I really do.
Yeah, and if you get to a playoff series and you got Logan Webb and Robbie Ray as your top two guys, that gives you a chance. I mean, we saw like World Baseball Classic, both of Logan Webb's outings were sensational. And 2021, when they made that playoffs series against the Dodgers, Logan Webb threw a gem in game one. So he's clearly not afraid of the big moment. I think he's a big game pitcher, and he hasn't had enough opportunities to pitch in big games. So hopefully they can get him there. I wanted to ask you, Tony Vitello, new manager, how you feel about him and how you feel about that change compared to Melvin.
Yeah, well, I don't watch a lot of college baseball, so as far as what he's done in the past, he is new to me
Yeah.
since he's been hired. I do think though that just having a new voice in the dugout is going to be big for them,
Hmm.
and having just having a younger coach, somebody that I don't think is very similar to the way Bob Melvin handles the way he coaches and handles a roster. I think that will help them, and sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
Is all you need is just that new voice, and maybe it echoes better with this group. I am interested to see how the beginning of the season goes with them. I think that's going to be huge. I think if they can get off to a good start those first 30, 40 games, I think that's going to help him out a lot, especially being that he's a first time coach in the MLB.
Yeah.
Just like with players, when you first start, you want to get off to a good start, gives you confidence, and he's got all the help in the world with the other people that he has helping him out or working for him for the team. So
Yeah.
I think it's gonna go well. I think it was a good signing to bring him in, and I think he's gonna have success.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, they got some guys like Ron Washington and Bruce Bochy's back as
Right.
a special advisor, and Jace Tinkler has managerial experience, so he's got a lot of guys, for support, and I think that was a smart move by them. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it'll be exciting to watch. Season starts on Wednesday
against the Yankees.
against the Yankees, so it'll be fun year, and we'll see what happens.